Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm the author of the 10 Human Academy series, and this is English Nerd. So one of my favorite poets for many years has been John Keats. I feel like this is true of a lot of English teachers. We all reach 26 and we think, we've outlived John Keats, because he did most of his best work when he was 23. He wrote some of the famous odes, like Ode to a Grecian Urn, which you may already know. But one of the first poems that got me into John Keats was his sonnet, When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be. And so I wanted to take a closer look at that. As always with all of these analytical videos, these videos are meant to teach, to inspire, to help, but they are not meant to help you cheat by just taking all of this information and passing everything off as your own without doing any analysis by yourself. So with this sonnet, there are a few lines that I actually am not entirely sure about as far as meaning goes. So I'll give you the information that I have, that I know as far as background in England at this time. But some of this investigation, if you want to go deeper, is going to be up to you, my friend. So without further ado, let's take a look at John Keats' When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be. Okay, this is the poem, When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be. So as you can see, I don't think Keats actually titled this anything except for the first line, but you see that with a lot of famous poems. Wordsworth has this, and John Milton, and lots of other people. So let's take a look. When I have fears that I may cease to be. So one of the major themes that you see come up again and again in John Keats' work is this sense that he's going to die young. Tragically, that did happen to him, but he feels like time is running out. So there's this idea of time that he establishes right at the beginning, and he has this fear that he may cease to be, that he will die before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charactery hold like rich garners the full ripened grain. So we'll take that first quatrain. This is a quatrain. In sonnets, there tend to be 3 quatrains and then a couplet at the end, and this is true of this poem as well. He writes it in the Shakespearean style, A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. So we'll take this first quatrain here. When I have fears that I may cease to be, he's afraid of dying, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain. So he starts to establish this metaphor of gleaning, of harvesting what's in his mind, the creative, poetic genius that he has. We have gleaned, we have rich garners, we have full ripened grain being the product of his creativity. One of the words that we use in a different way now than Keats would have used it in the early 1800s is charactery. So the idea, the word character or charactery could mean, among other things, writing, like a handwriting, especially. So if you think about Hamlet, when the king asks, somebody asks, is this Hamlet's character? He means, is that his handwriting? So in charactery, he has these books that he's written. He wants to be able to glean all of that creativity from his mind, and he wants to create these high-piled books, all of this rich information that he has, creativity that he has inside, but he's afraid that he won't be able to. Then we get almost a full stop there. We get a semicolon, and then it continues. When I behold, and again we have this idea of time, when I behold upon the night's starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and think that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. We haven't come to a period yet. This is all really one thought. Now that I'm looking at it, it's one sentence with multiple parts to it. So this is his next partial idea, and then he's going to eventually wrap it up. So when I behold upon the night's starred face, there is a very strong connection between the romantics, capital R, like John Keats, and nature, and how nature is this beautiful, awe-inspiring thing that is purer than the society around them. And so he's looking up, he's gaining inspiration from not only these kinds of farms and nature, I guess, that's been tamed, but especially nature that has not been. So there's night's starred face. There he sees huge cloudy symbols of a high romance. Now here, romance, that could mean romance as in the way that we think of it, like romantic love, because he is going to switch his view to somebody that he does seem to love. But it can also mean romance in the broader sense of beauty and idealism and emotion and some of these things that we don't always associate with the word now. So he's looking up and seeing these symbols of a high romance and thinking that he wants to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. So he feels like he's kind of, it seems anyway, with the magic hand of chance, he feels like he is being, that he's not entirely in control of his own life. He's afraid that he may cease to be. The magic hand of chance is what allows him to trace the shadows of this high romance that he wants to reveal to the world. And so he feels pretty out of control. He wants to be able to present all of this beauty to the world and is afraid that he won't have the opportunity to do that. And when I feel, there's often in sonnets this turn. So there will be a beginning part that establishes the problem or the question at hand, and then there's a shift, either in perspective, like you shift from general examples to a particular example, or a shift in the way that the argument's being thought about. Here, he's thinking primarily about himself and his work and how his work might not continue to exist as a representation of the beauty around him. But now he's focusing on a particular person. And when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the fairy power of unreflecting love. So I'm gonna pause it there because the whole 2.5 lines at the end really wrap things up. So we have a fair creature of an hour. We have a turn here. It's called the volta, if you want to get technical. And he's afraid once again that he's not only going to cease to be before he's able to write down everything that's inside of him and outside of him, but also he's afraid that he won't have the opportunity to spend more time with this person. The fair creature of an hour. He could be writing about the person that he did fall in love with in reality. Her name was Fanny Braun. But you always want to be careful with equating the narrator with the writer, even in a case like this where there are some clear similarities between the fears that Keats himself had and the fears that this narrator seems to be showing. So that's pretty tragic. Never have relish in the fairy power of unreflecting love. Now this line and a half here is difficult for me, so I'm going to tell you what I can guess, what I can gather, what I've found, but I don't have an absolute answer for you about what this line and a half means. So he's afraid that he'll never have relish in the fairy power of unreflecting love. So I looked it up right before making this video. Unreflecting love. There was a theory that the person seemed to be pretty confident about, that the love that this narrator has for the fair creature of an hour is unreflected. So it's unrequited, and so they want to have more time with this person in order to have that love requited, which makes a certain amount of sense in terms of the story. Fairy, the fairy power of unreflecting love. Fairy, the associations with that word are supernatural, which the Romantics were very interested in, and around the 1800s was the time when the prevailing impression of fairies, especially spelled this way, went from being more like what you see in Lord of the Rings, the tall, the impressive, even Sarah J. Maas, the Fae, which are pretty popular right now. So going from that dangerous, larger than life, attractive idea to the very small little fairies that can hide in flowers. So since the 1800s was the time when a lot of that shift in mindset happened, I'm not entirely sure which of those meanings he's thinking about here with the fairy power of unreflecting love. My initial impression is that it's that older form of fairy, something that is dangerous, like the realm of fairy where you can get lost and never come out the same. So make of that what you will. And then at the very end, so when he has fears that he may cease to be, when I behold the night star's face, starred face, when I feel fair creature of an hour that I shall never look upon thee more, then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone and think, till love and fame to nothingness do sink. So it's a pretty bleak ending, which is, again, typical of Keats. He tends to use this just luscious description and really beautiful alliteration in many of his other poems to make a similar point, that he's afraid of being forgotten. So fame, and then love, his love, time for love running out. So one way that now that I'm looking at this freshly for this video, I'm noticing that a lot of the lines up toward the top are end stopped. That means that there's, a stop at the end of the line. There's a comma, semicolon, etc. But most of the lines at the end are enjambed, which is spelled like this. Enjambed lines. We have enjambed lines right here because there is no punctuation, and so the poem itself, if you follow the pauses at the correct moments, actually speeds up, just like the time that he feels is running out. So it's a bleak poem, yes, but I just love the dark romantic feel of Keats's poetry. With fall coming up, I would definitely recommend reading To Autumn if you enjoyed this video and this particular poem. But that is it, When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be. So that was it. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, and that you appreciate John Keats a bit more. I've actually been reading more poetry lately, and so I should have more of these videos coming up. Normally I don't read poetry on my own. I know, shocking. But I've been kind of tasting some different works that I wouldn't ordinarily have picked up recently. So anyway, make sure to subscribe for more English nerdy goodness coming soon, and like this video if you like it. I'll see you guys next Monday. Bye.